Admiral Zixtrakian's sensory tendrils twitched as he studied the holographic display of Earth. After 3 solar cycles of observation, something peculiar had caught his attention. His specialized equipment detected billions of synchronized energy signatures pulsing across the planet's surface, concentrated in what appeared to be residential zones. Analyst Keevil, report on pattern anomaly 7 beta, he commanded, his crystalline eyes fixed on a particular cluster of signals emanating from what humans called North America. The junior analyst's appendages danced across the control interface. Admiral, we've isolated the source. The humans appear to be interfacing with sophisticated electronic devices, primarily during their rest cycles. Initial data suggests these are recreational in nature. Zixtrakian leaned forward, his iridescent scales shifting colors with interest. The Coalition's pre-contact protocols required thorough understanding of potential spacefaring species, but these readings defied standard classification. They weren't communication signals, military transmissions, or industrial output. "Show me a direct feed," he ordered. The holographic display shifted, zooming into a suburban dwelling. Inside, a human child, approximately 10 orbital cycles old by their standards, sat before a glowing screen. The Admiral's translator processed the text displayed. Stellar Command 2187. What followed left the experienced Coalition officers speechless. The child's fingers moved with practiced precision across an input device as complex mathematical calculations appeared and disappeared. 3-dimensional spatial awareness tests disguised as asteroid fields, resource management scenarios masked as supply routes, combat tutorials hidden within colorful explosions. "This can't be correct," he muttered. "Run a comparative analysis against Coalition Naval Academy training simulations." Keevil complied, and moments later, let out a startled chirp. "Sir, there's a 78% correlation with our basic officer training programs. But this is entertainment." The Admiral watched as the child, username Stardancer 447, coordinated with other young humans in a complex fleet maneuver. They were executing a pincer movement that had taken him 3 years to master at the Academy. Yet these children performed it while chatting about something called homework. "Focus our observation on this particular human," Zixtrakian decided. "Stardancer 447 shows remarkable aptitude. I want to understand how their species has managed to transform military training into, what do they call this? A video game, sir. Our cultural databases indicate it's a form of recreational activity primarily aimed at younglings." The Admiral's scales shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. In his centuries of service, he'd never encountered a species that prepared its young for space warfare through play. The implications were staggering. As he watched, the child failed a particularly challenging scenario involving gravitational slingshot calculations. Instead of displaying distress, they immediately restarted, adjusting their approach based on the previous attempt. This cycle of failure, analysis, and improvement continued until success was achieved. Note in the official record, Zixtrakian announced, Human Observation Log, Entry 2187. Species has developed sophisticated training mechanisms disguised as entertainment. Young ones are being prepared for space combat and exploration through immersive simulations. Most remarkable aspect, they appear to be doing this unconsciously. He paused, watching as Stardancer 447 celebrated victory with their online squadmates. Additional note, their methods of instruction through entertainment may represent the most efficient training system we've encountered in known space. The Coalition's high command must be informed immediately. As the Admiral prepared his report, he couldn't help but wonder, if human children were capable of mastering complex space warfare concepts through games, what else had this species accomplished without realizing it? The answer to that question would soon reshape Coalition doctrine forever. The observation chamber hummed with quiet activity as data continued to pour in from Earth's gaming networks. Somewhere in North America, a child celebrated beating their high score, unaware that their achievement had just caught the attention of one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Admiral Zextrachian's scales shifted to the gold of anticipation. This discovery would either cement his reputation as a visionary or mark him as delusional. Either way, he couldn't take his eyes off the screen where Stardancer 447 was already loading their next mission. Admiral Zextrachian's observation chamber had transformed over the past week. Multiple holographic displays tracked Stardancer 447's gaming sessions, while analytical programs compiled data on human learning patterns. The Admiral stood motionless, his scales shimmering with fascination as he watched Alex, the child's real name, they'd discovered, tackle an advanced scenario. "Sir," Kevol reported, "the subject has initiated what they call career mode, Deep Space Explorer. Our systems indicate this simulation contains accurate stellar cartography." On the main screen, Alex's virtual starship approached a complex asteroid field. Instead of following the preset navigation route, the child paused, pulled up a series of calculations, and began plotting an alternative course. "Magnify those calculations," Zextrachian ordered, his crystalline eyes widening. "Are they actually computing?" "Fuel efficiency ratios, sir," Kevol confirmed. "The child is calculating multiple trajectories to determine the optimal path while accounting for gravitational influences from nearby stellar bodies." The Admiral's scales flickered between shades of amazement and disbelief. Such calculations were typically reserved for senior navigation officers in the Coalition fleet. Yet here was a human child, performing them as casually as breathing. "Watch this part," Kevol continued, excitement tinging their voice. When they reached the asteroid field, Alex's fingers danced across the controls. The virtual ship weaved through the asteroids with precision, but what caught the Admiral's attention was the subtle way the child used the larger rock's gravitational fields to conserve momentum. It was an advanced technique that many Coalition pilots never mastered. "Pause simulation," Zextrachian commanded. "Show me the child's previous attempts at this scenario." The displays filled with earlier recordings. Each attempt showed slight variations, improvements, and learned behaviors. The Admiral noticed how Alex never repeated the same mistake twice, instead using each failure as a building block toward success. "Their learning curve is remarkable," he mused. "In 3 hours, they progressed from basic navigation to implementing advanced stellar mechanics, and they think they're just playing." A new alert caught his attention. Alex had switched to a different game mode. This one focused on managing a space station's resources. The child began establishing trade routes, calculating supply chains, and optimizing crew rotations, all while chatting with friends about their day at school. "Sir," Kevol interjected, "I've completed the comparative analysis you requested. This particular game contains elements of 17 different Coalition training programs, but the humans have somehow made it fun." The Admiral's scales shifted to a thoughtful purple. "Show me the game's popularity metrics." Numbers scrolled across a secondary display. Millions of players worldwide. Countless hours of collective problem-solving. Massive databases of user-created scenarios and solutions. Humanity had turned space exploration training into a collaborative global phenomenon. "Look at this," he pointed to a particular statistic. "Average players attempt difficult scenarios 42% more times than Coalition cadets in similar training exercises. They're more persistent because failure carries no consequences beyond restarting the game." As they watched, Alex encountered a new challenge, a sudden solar flare threatening their virtual ship. Instead of following standard protocols, the child tried something unprecedented, using the flare's electromagnetic properties to boost their communication signal. That's brilliant," Zextrachian whispered. "In 3 centuries of space exploration, I've never seen anyone attempt that solution." The success notification flashed across Alex's screen, accompanied by a shower of virtual achievements and rewards. The child grinned, immediately sharing their discovery with online friends who began discussing ways to refine the technique. Kevol, the Admiral said slowly, update the observation priority classification. These games aren't just entertainment or even unintentional training tools. They're incubators for innovation. Every child playing them is unknowingly participating in the most elaborate space exploration research program I've ever encountered. He watched as Alex saved their progress and prepared for another session. And the most fascinating part, he added, his scales now glowing with intense interest. They created all of this before they even reached the stars. Imagine what humanity will accomplish when they actually get there. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of monitoring equipment. Somewhere on Earth, Alex was just enjoying another evening of gaming. But in a hidden observation post far above their planet, an alien admiral was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength might be their ability to turn their greatest challenges into play. The Admiral's observation chamber buzzed with unusual activity as Alex logged into the Stellar Command 2187 Championship Series. Hundreds of young human players from across Earth had gathered in this virtual space, their avatars representing Starship captains from dozens of imagined spacefaring civilizations. Tournament parameters verified, Kevol reported. These children will compete in teams of 4, facing increasingly complex scenarios. The winning team advances to what they call the Global Finals. Admiral Trakian watched as Alex's team, calling themselves Nova Squadron, entered their first challenge. The scenario involved navigating through a dying star system while rescuing stranded research vessels. What happened next left even the experienced coalition officers speechless. Team, we need to split into pairs. Alex's voice came through the monitoring system. Jade and I will handle the gravitational calculations for the rescue operations. May and Diego, focus on monitoring solar activity and plotting escape vectors. The Admiral's scales rippled with appreciation. Notice how they naturally divided responsibilities based on each member's strengths. Coalition cadets take years to develop such coordination. The young team moved with practiced precision. When one member struggled with a complex calculation, another would seamlessly offer support. They shared shortcuts, warned of hidden dangers, and celebrated small victories, all while executing maneuvers that would impress veteran Starship crews. Sir, Kevol's appendages twitched with excitement. You need to see this communication pattern analysis. The holographic display showed an intricate web of information flow between team members, while their casual chatter seemed chaotic. Underlying it was a sophisticated system of tactical information sharing. They had developed their own shorthand for complex space phenomena and maneuvers. Look there, the Admiral pointed as Alex's team encountered a particularly challenging rescue. They're using a technique that wasn't programmed into the game. The children had discovered that by synchronizing their ship's shield harmonics, they could create a temporary safe corridor through the star's radiation field. It was an innovative solution born purely from experimentation and shared knowledge. Bringing up historical data, Kevol announced. This technique has spread through the gaming community over the past month. Players call it the Nova Shield. It began in a casual match and has now become standard tournament strategy. Trakian's scales shifted to an impressed gold. They've created a collaborative learning network that spans their entire planet. Every discovery, every innovation is shared, refined, and improved upon by millions of young minds. As Nova Squadron advanced through the tournament brackets, the Admiral noticed something else. The children weren't just competing. They were teaching each other. Between matches, Alex's team would share tips with eliminated players, helping them understand where they went wrong and how to improve. Sir, incoming data spike, Kevol reported. The tournament organizers just announced a surprise element for the semifinals. The remaining teams were presented with a scenario involving an unstable wormhole, a phenomenon that humanity hadn't yet encountered in real life. The Admiral leaned forward, curious to see how they would handle a situation they had no reference for. What followed was a masterclass in problem-solving. The teams shared observations in global chat, tested theories through trial and error, and built upon each other's discoveries. Within hours, they had developed multiple viable strategies for stabilizing theoretical wormholes. "Remarkable," Zextrakian muttered. "They've just crowdsourced a solution to a problem that took coalition scientists decades to solve, and they think they're just playing a game." Nova Squadron eventually placed third in the tournament, but the Admiral barely noticed the final rankings. He was too busy analyzing the wealth of tactical and strategic innovations that had emerged during the competition. "Kevol, prepare a special report for Coalition High Command," he ordered. "Focus on their collaborative learning methods. The way these children freely share knowledge, build upon each other's ideas, and turn competition into cooperation. It's unprecedented." The junior analyst worked quickly, but couldn't hide their curiosity. "Sir, do you think the humans realize what they're actually doing?" Admiral Zextrakian watched as Alex's team congratulated the tournament winners, already discussing strategies for the next competition. His scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. "No, they don't realize it yet, but they've created something extraordinary here. A system where play leads to innovation, competition breeds cooperation, and children can freely explore ideas that our finest minds never considered. And they're doing it all while having fun." The tournament servers began to empty as players logged off, but the Admiral's chamber remained abuzz with activity. There was still so much to learn from these remarkable young humans and their games. Admiral Zextrakian stood before the Coalition Training Review Board, his scales carefully maintained at a professional shade of blue as he presented his findings. The chamber's walls displayed comparative analyses between human gaming sessions and Coalition naval exercises. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, gesturing to a split screen showing Alex playing Stellar Command, while a Coalition cadet performed similar maneuvers. "Note the fundamental difference in approach. When our cadet encounters a challenge, they immediately reference established protocols. When the human child faces the same situation, they experiment." The board members shifted uncomfortably as they watched Alex deliberately crash their virtual ship into an asteroid, only to use the explosion's momentum to slingshot debris at an enemy vessel. The maneuver worked perfectly. "This would be grounds for immediate dismissal in our training programs," First Instructor Valon objected, their tendrils writhing with disapproval. "It's reckless, unpredictable, and exactly what saved the Coalition fleet during the Nexus crisis," Zextrakian countered. "The difference is, our commander took decades to consider such an unconventional tactic. This child conceived and executed it in minutes." He shifted the display to show Alex's latest gaming session. The child had encountered a no-win scenario, a training staple in both human games and Coalition programs. But while Coalition cadets were expected to accept their fate with dignity, Alex had other ideas. "Watch closely," the Admiral instructed. On screen, Alex's virtual ship appeared to malfunction, venting plasma into space. As expected, the enemy vessels moved in to capture what seemed to be a crippled target. At the last moment, Alex ignited the plasma cloud with a precisely calculated energy pulse, creating a temporary sensor blind spot that allowed their escape. "In 6 hours of observation, I witnessed this child devise 15 distinct strategies that contradict our established doctrine," Zextrakian continued. "More importantly, they shared these innovations through something called streaming, allowing thousands of other players to learn and improve upon their methods." Senior Instructor Mekri's crystalline form dimmed with concern. "You're suggesting we should encourage such chaos in our training?" "I'm suggesting we're witnessing the most efficient military training system in known space, and its participants don't even know they're being trained." The Admiral's scales flickered with intensity. "Humans have turned failure into a teaching tool rather than a mark of shame." He brought up another recording. This time, Alex was attempting an impossible rescue mission. The child failed spectacularly, but instead of showing frustration, they immediately began analyzing the failure, adjusting variables, and trying new approaches. "Observe. No reprimands, no demerits, no consequences beyond restarting the scenario." This creates an environment where innovation thrives because fear of failure is removed from the equation. The board members watched in silence as Alex's repeated attempts gradually led to success through a solution that hadn't been programmed into the game. The child had essentially invented a new rescue protocol through pure experimentation. Our rigid training methods, Zextrakian concluded, are producing officers who can recite every regulation, but freeze when confronted with unprecedented situations. Meanwhile, human children are casually inventing new solutions to complex space warfare scenarios between homework assignments. First instructor Villan's tendrils curled thoughtfully. You believe we should redesign our entire training program based on human entertainment. I believe we should learn from a species that has turned the most sophisticated military training imaginable into something their children beg to participate in. The Admiral's scales shifted to a passionate crimson. They've achieved through play what we failed to achieve through centuries of structured instruction. As if to emphasize his point, the display showed Alex's latest achievement, successfully negotiating peace with an alien civilization while simultaneously orchestrating a covert rescue operation below the alien planet's surface. The child celebrated with a snack break, unaware they'd just demonstrated advanced diplomatic and tactical skills that would impress veteran coalition commanders. The question before us, Zextrakian stated, is not whether we should change our methods, but whether we can afford not to. While we drill our cadets in rigid protocols, humanity is raising an entire generation of innovative tactical geniuses, and they're doing it for fun. The review board chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of holographic displays, still showing Earth's children casually mastering the art of space warfare through play. The implications were as clear as they were revolutionary. The Coalition's greatest military advantage might come from learning how to make training feel like a game. The observation chamber had been expanded to accommodate additional analysts as Alex's team, Nova Squadron, prepared for the Stellar Command Global Finals. Admiral Zextrakian's scales shimmered with anticipation as 32 of Earth's most skilled young players gathered in the virtual arena. Final round parameters are being uploaded, Kival announced, their appendages dancing across the control interface. The simulation appears to be extraordinary. Sir, they're implementing theoretical physics scenarios we've only recently confirmed. The main display showed the tournament arena, a massive simulation of colliding galaxy clusters. Gravitational forces twisted space-time itself, while radiation storms created ever-shifting hazard zones. It was, the Admiral realized, almost identical to the Maelstrom sector, where the Coalition had lost 3 fleet groups. All teams are deploying, Kival reported. Nova Squadron has been assigned to the Lambda Quadrant. Alex's voice came through crisp and clear. Team, this is unlike anything we've seen before. Start mapping those gravitational eddies. Diego, monitor radiation patterns. Jade, we're going to need precise quantum calculations for these jumps. The Admiral's scales flickered with amazement as the children instinctively adapted to conditions that had confounded his best scientists. They weren't just playing anymore. They were pushing the boundaries of known physics. Sir, a junior analyst called out, you need to see this. 3 teams have already developed a working theory about the galaxy cluster's collision patterns. On screen, Alex's team had discovered that the gravitational distortions followed predictable cycles. They were using this knowledge to surf the space-time waves, conserving energy while covering vast distances. It was a technique that even Coalition specialists hadn't considered. They're treating physics-defying phenomena as a navigation tool, Zextrakian observed, his voice tinged with wonder. Instead of avoiding the anomalies, they're turning them into advantages. The tournament progressed into its second hour. 7 teams had been eliminated, their virtual ships consumed by the chaotic environment. But Nova Squadron was thriving, having established a safe zone that other teams began using as a rally point. Remarkable, the Admiral muttered. Even in high-stakes competition, they default to cooperation when facing universal threats. A massive radiation surge suddenly threatened multiple teams. Without hesitation, Alex coordinated a joint response. 6 teams, former competitors, worked in perfect harmony to generate an overlapping shield matrix. The maneuver saved everyone, but cost precious resources. Sir, Kevol's appendages trembled with excitement. The humans are posting theories about this scenario in their community forums. They're collectively solving quantum mechanics problems that our institutes are still debating. The Admiral watched as Alex's team encountered a particularly dense gravity well. Instead of calculating a safe route around it, they did something unprecedented. They purposely entered the well's event horizon, using its distortion effect to create a temporary sensor shadow. His extrachean scales shifted through multiple colors of astonishment. That's theoretically possible, but the timing required would be perfect. Kevol finished as Nova Squadron emerged exactly where they planned. They make it look easy, sir. The final phase of the tournament introduced antimatter storms, forcing the remaining teams to calculate matter-antimatter reactions in real time. The children adapted with remarkable speed, turning deadly phenomena into makeshift weapons and shields. We've studied these conditions for centuries, the Admiral noted, yet these young humans intuitively grasped concepts our scientists struggled to theorize. Nova Squadron ultimately placed second in the tournament, beaten by a team from Singapore that had discovered how to harmonize their ship's quantum signatures with the galaxy cluster's collision frequency. The children exchanged congratulations and immediately began discussing their new discoveries. Kevol, his extrachean scales settled into a deep blue of contemplation. Update the contact preparation protocols. We've been approaching this all wrong. These aren't just clever primates who accidentally invented spaceflight simulations. He gestured to the screen showing thousands of children casually mastering concepts that had taken his civilization millennia to understand. They're a species that turned the greatest mysteries of the universe into a game, and then handed that game to their children to solve. We're not dealing with potential allies or rivals. The Admiral watched as Alex's team immediately began practicing for the next tournament. We're dealing with a civilization that has weaponized imagination itself, and they did it so subtly that they don't even realize what they've accomplished. The tournament servers began shutting down, but in the Coalition observation post, dozens of analysts were still processing the implications of what they'd witnessed. Humanity had once again proven that their greatest strength wasn't their technology or their theories, it was their ability to turn the impossible into child's play. The Coalition Council chamber hummed with tense energy as Admiral Zegstrakian prepared his presentation. 3 months of data collection had led to this moment. The circular chamber's crystalline walls reflected the faces of the most powerful military and scientific leaders in known space. Esteemed council members, he began, his scales carefully maintained at a formal azure. What you're about to see will challenge everything we thought we knew about human technological development. The central hologram displayed Earth, then zoomed in to show millions of interconnected points of light, each representing a human playing space simulation games. We've been monitoring their development through traditional metrics: satellite launches, propulsion technology, weapons development. But we've missed something extraordinary. The Admiral gestured, and the display shifted to show Alex's latest gaming session. First speaker Venthera leaned forward, their crystalline form catching the light. You've called an emergency session to show us children's entertainment, Admiral. I've called this session, Zegstrakian responded, to show you the most sophisticated military training program ever developed. One that's been hiding in plain sight. He played a series of clips. Children solving complex astronomical equations, coordinating fleet movements, managing resource distribution networks, and developing innovative battle strategies. Each clip was accompanied by data showing how these solutions could be applied to real space warfare. In the past week alone, human players have collectively spent over 12 million hours practicing space combat scenarios. They've developed solutions to problems that our best strategists haven't even considered yet. Second speaker Kralvor's tendrils twisted skeptically. Surely you're not suggesting. I am. The Admiral interrupted, his scales flickering with conviction. Humanity has unknowingly created a neural network of unprecedented scale. Millions of young minds, all working to solve the challenges of space exploration and combat, sharing their discoveries instantly across their global information network. The display showed Alex's team practicing a new technique they'd developed, using quantum entanglement principles to coordinate fleet movements. The council chamber fell silent as they watched children casually manipulating physics in ways that coalition scientists had only theorized. Most remarkable, Zextrakian continued, is their approach to failure. Observe. The hologram showed multiple attempts at a particularly challenging scenario. Each failure was followed by immediate analysis, adjustment, and another attempt. No recriminations, no punishment, just constant improvement. They've gamified the learning process so effectively that their children voluntarily spend hours mastering skills that our own officers struggle with after years of training. The Admiral brought up comparison charts. Coalition cadets typically achieve a 23% success rate in advanced tactical scenarios after 3 years of training. Human children playing these games achieve a 47% success rate in similar scenarios after just 6 months. First speaker Venthera's crystalline form dimmed thoughtfully. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting that humanity has developed something more valuable than advanced technology. They've created a system that turns their entire species into an engine of innovation. Every problem we've encountered in space exploration, they've already solved thousands of times in simulation. He showed footage of tournament plays, casual gaming sessions, and online discussions where players shared strategies. They don't realize it yet, but they're preparing their entire civilization for space warfare. Not through military drilling or rigid protocols, but through play. They've turned the most complex challenges of space exploration into entertainment. The council chamber erupted in murmured discussions. Admiral Zextrakian waited patiently, his scales now shifting to a deep purple of certainty. Consider the implications, he continued once the chamber quieted. When humanity reaches the stars, they won't be sending untested theorists or rigidly trained soldiers. They'll be sending people who have already faced every conceivable space challenge thousands of times in simulation. People who have been practicing innovative problem-solving since childhood. He displayed one final image, a global map showing millions of active players, all connected, all learning, all innovating. We're not just watching their technological development anymore. We're watching the emergence of a species that has turned the greatest challenges of space exploration into a collaborative game. And they're winning. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just created a game. They'd created a civilization-wide training program so subtle and effective that even they didn't recognize it for what it was. First speaker Venthera's voice cut through the silence. Admiral Zextrakian, what do you recommend? His scales shifted to a resolute gold as he responded. We need to completely reassess our approach to Earth. We're not dealing with primitive newcomers to space warfare. We're dealing with a species that has already mastered it. They just don't know it yet. The Coalition Training Academy's main simulation chamber had undergone a complete transformation. Gone were the stark, utilitarian interfaces and rigid protocol displays. Instead, colorful holographic controls surrounded the young cadets, their tentacles and appendages moving with increasing confidence across the game-like interface. Admiral Zextrakian watched from the observation deck as the first class of game-enhanced training participants ran through their exercises. His scales rippled with satisfaction as he noticed their increased engagement and willingness to experiment. Sir, Kivol reported, now promoted to head of innovation training. The results from the first month are beyond our projections. Cadet performance has increased by 72% across all metrics. The main display showed a group of young coalition officers attempting a complex rescue scenario. Instead of following traditional protocols, they were using techniques inspired by human gaming strategies. One cadet had even adopted Alex's famous Nova Shield maneuver. Most impressive, the Admiral noted, is how quickly they're learning to think creatively. Watch this group here. A team of cadets encountered a simulated engine failure. Rather than executing standard emergency procedures, they experimented with different solutions, sharing ideas and building on each other's suggestions, just as they'd observe human players doing. They're no longer afraid to fail, Keval observed, their appendages gesturing excitedly. Just this morning, Squad 7 attempted a theoretical maneuver 15 times before perfecting it. Under the old system, they would have been reprimanded after the first failure. The Admiral's scales shifted to a proud gold as he watched the cadets celebrate a particularly innovative solution. How are the instructors adapting to the new methodology? There was initial resistance, Keval admitted. But after seeing the results, "Sir, look at this." The display showed a senior instructor actually participating in a simulation alongside their students, all of them laughing as they tried increasingly creative approaches to a tactical challenge. "We've started receiving requests from other coalition institutions," Keval continued. "The science division wants to implement similar programs for their researchers. Even the diplomatic corps is interested in studying human multiplayer cooperation mechanics." Zextrakian moved to another observation window, where a more advanced class was attempting to recreate and improve upon strategies they'd observed in human tournament plays. Their movements were becoming more fluid, more intuitive, more human. "Sir," Keval's voice took on a note of wonder. "The latest behavioral analysis shows our cadets are developing something we've never seen before in coalition training. Genuine enthusiasm for learning." The Admiral watched as a young cadet discovered a new application of quantum mechanics during what was supposed to be a simple navigation exercise. Instead of being punished for deviating from the lesson plan, they were encouraged to explore their discovery. Other cadets gathered around, building on the idea, suggesting improvements. "They're not just memorizing protocols anymore," Zextrakian observed. "They're creating new ones, just like the humans do." A sudden commotion drew their attention. A cadet team had managed to solve the infamous Nexus scenario, a simulation based on one of the Coalition's greatest military disasters, using a completely unprecedented approach inspired by human gaming strategies. "Record that solution," the Admiral ordered, his scales shimmering with excitement. "And make sure it's distributed to the fleet. What we're seeing here isn't just improved training efficiency. It's the beginning of a fundamental shift in how our entire civilization approaches problem-solving." Keval's appendages danced across the control panel, bringing up comparative statistics. "Sir, at this rate, the next generation of coalition officers will be more adaptable, more innovative, and more effective than any in our history. And it's all because we learned to play." Admiral Zextrakian's scales settled into a thoughtful blue as he watched the cadets continue their exercises. Somewhere on Earth, Alex and millions of other children were still playing their space simulation games, unknowingly revolutionizing warfare doctrine across the galaxy. "Send a message to Coalition High Command," he instructed. "Tell them Phase 1 of the training revolution has exceeded all expectations, and remind them, this is just the beginning. We haven't even started implementing the most advanced human gaming concepts yet." The simulation chamber filled with excited chatter as another cadet team discovered a new tactical solution. In just 1 month, they'd generated more innovations than the Academy had seen in the previous decade. All because they'd learned humanity's greatest secret. The most effective way to prepare for the challenges of space wasn't through rigid training, it was through play. The Coalition Grand Chamber gleamed with ceremonial lights as the full council gathered for their most crucial vote in centuries. Admiral Zextrakian stood at the center, his scales a composed blend of confidence and anticipation as he prepared to deliver his final recommendation regarding Earth. "Honorable Council," he began, gesturing to the massive holographic display. "For the past solar cycle, we've observed humanity's remarkable development through their space simulation programs. Today, I present not just findings, but a vision for our shared future. The display showed a montage of human gaming achievements, Alex's team pioneering new tactical approaches, global tournaments solving complex astronomical phenomena, and millions of young players unconsciously preparing for the challenges of space. We stand at a crossroads, the Admiral continued. Traditional doctrine would have us approach Earth as superior beings, offering guidance to a developing species. But I submit that this would be our greatest mistake. First speaker Venthera's crystalline form pulsed with interest. Explain your reasoning, Admiral. Consider this, Zix-Trakian responded, bringing up footage from the latest Stellar Command Championship. While we debated how to approach them, humanity has solved theoretical problems that plagued our scientists for generations, not through conventional research, but through play. The chamber watched as tournament players casually manipulated virtual physics in ways that matched the Coalition's most advanced theories. New clips showed children developing innovative solutions to space warfare challenges that had cost countless Coalition lives in real battles. More importantly, the Admiral's scales shifted to passionate crimson. Observe how they approach these challenges collectively. Every discovery is shared, refined, and improved upon by their global gaming community. They've created a collaborative problem-solving network that spans their entire planet. Second speaker Kralvor's tendrils writhed thoughtfully, yet they remain unaware of their own achievements. Precisely, Zix-Trakian confirmed, and therein lies their greatest strength. Freed from the burden of knowing they're preparing for real space warfare, their minds remain unbound by conventional limitations. They experiment, innovate, and solve problems in ways we never considered possible. He displayed the latest data from the Coalition's reformed training programs, showing how the integration of human gaming principles had revolutionized their own military education. We've learned more from observing their children at play than we have from centuries of structured military development. And now, as they stand on the brink of true space flight capability, we must decide. Do we approach them as mentors or as equals? The chamber erupted in discussion. Admiral Zix-Trakian waited patiently, his scales now shifting to a deep blue of certainty. I propose something unprecedented, he announced when the chamber quieted. We should approach humanity through the very medium that revealed their potential to us, their games. The display showed a detailed plan for first contact, a specially designed gaming scenario that would gradually introduce real Coalition protocols and eventually reveal the truth about their space simulation programs. Let them discover that their games were more than entertainment, that they've been preparing for this moment all along. Let them realize that their children's play has already earned them a place among the stars. First speaker Venthera leaned forward. And if they react with hostility to learning they've been observed, the Admiral's scales flickered with confidence. They won't. We've watched them solve countless first contact scenarios in their games. In every iteration, they demonstrate a remarkable capacity for diplomatic innovation. They're ready for this. He showed one final clip. Alex's team presenting their latest theoretical breakthrough at a global gaming convention, freely sharing knowledge that could revolutionize space travel. Humanity hasn't just been playing games, Zix-Trakian concluded. They've been showing us a new way to approach the greatest challenges of space exploration. They've proven that the most effective path to innovation isn't through rigid structure, but through collaborative creativity and the freedom to fail without consequence. The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled. First speaker Venthera's voice cut through the quiet. You're proposing we reveal ourselves through their own creation, their games. Yes, the Admiral confirmed, his scales shimmering with conviction. Let's show them that while they thought they were playing, they were actually preparing for their greatest adventure. Let's welcome them to the Galactic community not as students, but as teachers who have already changed how we view the universe. The vote that followed was unprecedented in Coalition history, unanimous approval for peaceful first contact through gaming channels. As the chamber erupted in excited discussion, Admiral Zix-Trakian's scales shifted to a satisfied gold. Somewhere on Earth, Alex was probably logging into another gaming session, unaware that their next space simulation might be more real than anyone ever imagined.